I'm sure they've got documentation of it if she took it down.
So, did you say the school board is not meeting tonight? Or, oh, they are meeting. Oh,
Guys ready?
Whenever you are, you're the boss.
The meeting of the Board of Ellis County Commissioners will now come to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Donnie, you can call the roll.
Commissioner Dean Hazelhorse,
Present.
Commission Chair Butch Slyer,
Present.
Commissioner Dustin Roth.
Present.
You have a quorum present.
Okay, thank you. No changes to the order of business tonight. We have no executive sessions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And I don't believe we have any prior minutes. Okay. I'll need a motion for the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through G.
I second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0. Are there any issues from persons not on the order of business?
We have one.
Dr. Hammond?
I'm here tonight, I think first time I've ever been before the commission in the 35 years I've been in town. I'm here as a citizen who is really disappointed in you. The last time that you met to consider the mask issue, I was in Colorado, deeply impressed with what that state was trying to accomplish protecting its citizens. And in my experience in Hayes and Ellis County, this commission has always taken the best interest of its citizens and its community in interest to try to protect us the best way you can. There are a number of reasons why I'm disappointed. First, the economy of Ellis County depends upon two things. One, we remain open, and two, that the university can bring back 4,000 students in about 3 weeks. That decision to bring back those students and have them here is worth over $75 million to this community. And the only way that's going to be possible is if this community not only reduces the impact of the disease here, but shows itself as an outlier, as a place that parents can send their kids, their men and women, to study and feel safe. The decision that you made sent the wrong message. I don't know if that's why you did it, but that's what it meant. I've had calls from graduate students coming to take my classes who are wondering what's going on, why the numbers are going up, and why we made the decision on face masks in our community that we did. The economy of Ellis County needs to remain open, and if the disease continues to expand, you're going to have to make other decisions that are a lot worse for business. I can't imagine anyone on Main Street who won't support a mask phenomena like what we're talking about. It's not that bad a thing to occur, and it really does work. We know it works. We're not China. We can't require that everyone wear a mask, and if they're on the street, they're immediately, arrested. But we can set a standard. And when 4,000 more students come back to this community, we need to have the standard in place and all of our citizens adhering to that standard if we're going to be successful in controlling this particular outbreak. The future of our institution has shown tremendous growth over the last 19 years. We've grown every single year, and the community has benefited economically by that. That continued growth depends upon not only us providing a high-quality education and providing a very, very low tuition, which we've been able to do, but we go out and brag about how safe our community is. Our low crime rates, we convince families that this is the right place to come. And now what we're seeing is just the opposite. We see people saying, no, they don't want to go. They don't want to come here. And we don't want that to happen. And then just today, the MIAA decided to push back intercollegiate athletics about a month in terms of when we can start practice, and they are delaying and waiting to see what's going to happen in the college towns as we move forward into the school year. Now, athletics is not only important from an economic standpoint, a lot of our students are involved in that activity as well. And so I'd hope that and pray that you would reconsider your decision and make a decision that's in the best interest of the community, not only the health of our citizens, but the future of our community, the future of our university, and provide the healthiest environment possible moving forward. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Yes.
Hi, I appreciate Dr. Hammond speaking to the economic impact, and I would just like to speak a little bit about the human impact, the safety impact. I mentioned at the special meeting when that decision was made that I am a breast cancer survivor, and in the interim time, I've spoken with my oncologist, and I said, you know, it's been almost 5 years. Am I really considered at risk? You know, was I just throwing something out? Was I playing the cancer card, you know, just because I could? And he said, no. He said, according to the CDC, anyone with a history of malignancy is considered at high risk. And he said, and I really do not understand the county commissioner's decision, because here at the clinic, we're doing everything we can to help people stay alive, and they're fighting for their lives. But if they go out in this community and people are not wearing masks to protect them, then it undoes what we're trying to do. And I just implore you to think about those who are at high risk. I implore you to listen to the medical community and what they are saying about masks. And I haven't spoken to one who has said, you know, I don't see that that will make a difference. They believe that it will make a difference. And, you know, it's the high-risk community members that will pay the price. And I know that we've had a couple of deaths, and, you know, I think some people think, 90 years old. Well, if you're 90, you know, my dad is 94. And I think of the last 4 years I've had with my dad and what he's been able to experience. And he also has an underlying heart condition. So I know if he gets COVID, it's not going to be good. So I implore you to look out for those who are at high risk, and saying, if you're at risk, then just wear a mask. That doesn't cut it. It doesn't. You've all seen the chart where it shows if neither of you are wearing a mask and one person has COVID, this person's at high risk of getting it. If this person who's at high risk is wearing a mask, it's like, well, they're 30% protected. If the person who is infected is wearing the mask, then that goes up. And ideally, you know, the highest amount of protection is when they're both wearing masks. And because you can be asymptomatic, not even know that you have COVID, and could be spreading it, there's no reason not to wear a mask. So please reverse that decision. Thank you.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak? Okay, Jason.
Jason Kennedy, Public Health Officer, Ellis County Health Department. So, you know, first off, I was going to provide you guys the numbers, that kind of stuff, but I think we'd be remiss if we don't understand that there is a definite fear surrounding COVID-19 in our community. There's fear surrounding both our attempts at mitigation measures or lack of attempts at mitigation measures. There's fear surrounding the virus itself, and there's fear surrounding the reaction to the virus. So how we manage all of that is how successful we are in Ellis County. So far today, we have 34 active cases. Our 7-day average percent of positive is 8%. The percent of positive is important because it shows or differentiates the difference between whether we're just testing more or whether we actually have more cases, or vice versa. It also shows how robust your testing platform is. CDC says if that percent of positive gets over about 20%, it basically means you're not testing enough, and it really loses its value. So somewhere in between that 5 to 15, 16 range is where you need to be. It shows your testing platform is robust enough, but it also shows how many more active cases or how much community spread you have. Our 7-day average cases per day, so that means the average growth per day for the last 7 days has been 5 cases per day. Current hospitalizations, we have 2 people that are currently hospitalized. One of them is the original from the group of 3. So we have 2 current active hospitalizations. And as mentioned, we have unfortunately lost a member of the community, which we put out a press release on that, but we have one death as of today. If you look at our numbers, we have 2 cases per 1,000. The reason why that number is important is we consistently focus on this number of cases. Number of cases, how many cases, how many cases? And we look to the county beside us and we say, well, they only have 10 cases, but they might only have a 1/10 of our population as well. So that cases per 1,000 is a way to standardize that metric really across all of the counties in the state and really across the nation to look and see, well, how do we compare? How are we doing? So we have 2 cases per 1,000. If you look at the case rates in the 8 counties that are the 4 counties larger than us and the 4 counties smaller than us, I think we've talked before, we're the 20th largest county in the state. So if you look 4 on either side, the average cases per 1,000 is 12.64. 12.64 cases per 1,000. We're at 2 cases per 1,000. Our first positive case was March 12th. It's now July
20th.
20th. We actually relaxed or removed restrictions back on May 27th. In that time frame leading up to May 27th, we had very few cases. As the other states, other counties, as everybody else has begun to relax their restrictions, we have seen our cases continue to grow. Since July 3rd to today, we've added 60 cases in 17 days. That means we have it in our community. We talked about it last Monday. Low cases, slow cases, no cases for days, then a case popping up means that likely you're going somewhere else, getting it, and bringing it back. Case growth like this means we have it in our community. Now, of those 60 cases that we've added in the last 17 days, we have 34 active cases. Active cases means someone that can transmit it within your community. Someone that is still within their infectious period or their contagious period, they can impact other people around you. If you look at that number, it's 0.1%. 0.1%, not 1%. 0.1% of our population is currently infected in Ellis County. Now, as far as community mitigation measures, the reason I mentioned those numbers, the reason I mentioned 0.1% of the population infected, and why we talk about our percent of positives, and as we talk about our hospitalization rate. Those 3 metrics are what has been used by the state from the initiation of the Ad Astra plan all the way through. That's where they say at these metrics, at these stages, at these plateaus, you either enact or remove restrictions. The CDC, the President's Reopening America plan, same deal. Gating metrics that show where you would or would not add community restrictions. We've talked from day one. We have a community mitigation plan. We have a viral transmission plan, a pandemic plan, whatever you want to call it. We have one. We've followed it from day one. I intend to continue to follow it. In that plan, our gating metrics are 14% of positive tests, meaning that we have a robust testing platform, but we are not so far outside of that we don't know what we're doing. 14% of tests, of positive tests being returned as positive. 1% active infection in the community, which would be 280 active infections. The reason why that number is important is because with a 5% hospitalization rate, which is what we've seen with this virus pretty much nationwide, that would give us around 14 to 15 people in the hospital. That would put us at 70%, 75% of what the hospital's reserved COVID capacity is. Now, that's not their surge capacity. They would determine what their actual capacity or what they could, but that would get us 70 to 75% of what the reserved capacity is. That's our plan. That was our original plan. That's a plan based on the CDC's gating criteria. It's a plan based on the governor's gating criteria. At some point during this pandemic, we have to have a plan, and we've had one from the start. So at those metrics is when I would recommend we implement community mitigation measures. Those community mitigation measures are not one thing at a time. You couple them together to make impacts. Social distancing, washing your hands, not touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. Those are easy community mitigation measures. They're on an individualized basis. They make an impact in your community. If they're done right, they're effective. Social distancing is greater than 6 feet. If you're outside of that 6 feet for 10 minutes, not only does the KDHE not say that you're a contact, but your likelihood of transmission of COVID is extremely low. If you go to 8 feet, it's even less. After 10 feet, there's absolutely no, there is very low likelihood that you would be impacted by that individual. Social distancing works. Now, as far as community mitigation measures, social distancing can go further. We see communities in the state of Kansas that are not only enacting mask rules, but they're also the effective ones, or the ones that are making some changes. They have bars closing, they have mass gathering restrictions, they have limitations on personal movement, on travel, all of that. Those measures go together with community mitigation to actually make an impact on viral transmission. My fear with this is if we do these too early, if we do these at a point that the public doesn't believe in them, not only will they not be effective, but we won't have them in reserve when we need them. CDC's plan talks about it as a fear, basically an alarm fatigue is what they call it, where you're scared for so long you stop being scared. You won't listen, you won't follow the guidance, and you won't enact the measures that you need to combat the virus. We have to have a plan. We need to realize that whatever decisions are made impact everybody. I don't get a political affiliation. We've talked about that. I have to serve everybody equally. Masks are one of those measures that is the most polarizing and divisive thing that I've probably seen. You have people on either side of the aisle, and we need everybody in the middle. Dr. Norman said, just because a county's guidelines may be more relaxed, it doesn't mean individuals should relax their own safety precautions. Right now, people have to make choices to protect themselves and, in essence, protect the people around them. I don't mandate, I recommend, I educate. That's what public health does. We have to remember that public sentiment and public desire to enact is what makes a mitigation measure or a mitigation structure effective. And they have to believe in you, they have to believe in me, and they have to believe in the measure for it to be effective. The last thing I'll leave you with before I take questions is, and this is probably the most fitting statement I've seen. Lincoln in 1856 said, in this age, in this country, public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Against it, nothing can succeed. Whoever molds public sentiment goes deeper than he who enacts statutes and pronounces judicial decisions. Right now, the people have to believe in these measures. They need to do it to protect themselves. They need to do it to protect them around them. You guys have any questions for me?
Commissioner Roth, any questions?
Yeah, I got a couple of them. The first thing, and I had kind of given Jason a bit of a heads up on this. I wanted him to know the questions that I was going to ask, and frankly, the number one term that I think you just told us is the thing that I was trying to pinpoint the entire time we were trying to govern this, and that is the idea of alarm fatigue. I am sick and tired of the news trying to turn this into something that it is not. I believe that hurts our chance at governing. For instance, I went on Saline County Health Department just to kind of see when they make a report, what happens. And when I went on there, they have double the amount of active cases of us, 6 more deaths. They're a bigger county, so you could imagine that. But I thought I'd go on there and see how Saline County's public is dealing with it. And there were about, a handful, 8, 12 shares, a couple comments, a few people that said, hey, thank you so much for looking out for us, thanking their health department for getting them the information. And then I looked on ours. And the number one underlying issue on ours is that our news agencies grab a hold of it, share it, scare people with comments, and then blow it way out of proportion. Even though we're very similar in terms of the number of cases, we're way under the amount of deaths. So what ends up happening is we blow something out of proportion. And that's when I start to question the idea. You know, just as Jason alluded to, you can only be told so many times how scary something is before you go, I've got to look into this as hard as I can. And how can we as a governing body convince? And so then I read an article and I thought it just hit the nail on the head. It's an article out of Colorado, a place that, we tell people not to travel to. We tell them to stay here if they have issues, not to travel to possibly pick up COVID-19 and bring it back to our community, especially if they're at risk. So in this article, it does a really good job. It's a college instructor that teaches about how you create emotions, basically how to build an argument. The logical, the logos, the emotional, the pathos, and then creating credibility, the ethos, which is what we're talking about. When we actually do something, we want people to understand that it's a serious situation. And I think one of the terms that I've just grown to hate throughout this pandemic is that we're doing these things with the utmost desire for safety. We don't do all things for safety. We make individual decisions every single day to do things that aren't as safe as we probably could do them. And we live our lives autonomous from the government, as we should, and we take care of ourselves. We take care of our families. Meanwhile, and I imagine you two have gotten quite a few emails this week for and against the wearing of masks. And at one point during the week, I saw something that said, the only problem right now, the only problem that we have an issue in society is that people don't talk about their opinions about masks enough. And I thought that was rather funny in terms of I just opened up my email and I have 20 emails to read and respond to. So that's when I started thinking about governing. And this article is great. I think everybody should read it. I will share it on my Facebook page, my political page, so people can do it. It talks about the name of the article is "Want to Convince Me to Wear a Mask? Here's What Not to Do." And that is scare me. Pretend like I'm stupid because I wouldn't wear a mask. Compare this to the Spanish flu that happened 100 years ago when we had no mitigation measures to take care of the secondary problem with any virus, which is pneumonia. We can take care of pneumonia now so much better than they could then. And by the way, 50 million people died from that pandemic. So it talks about all those things, and I just see them every single day. Every single day that I open up anything on social media, I'm going to turn into you guys because I'm so sick of looking at it. But that's what it is. It's shaming. It's telling us that we don't care about people if we don't force them to do things. And that's when I got into the precedents that might be set by our commission. Frankly, I've seen enough people on my email thread beg me to take of their individual autonomy and the autonomy of the people around them. And I got to thinking about our country and the people who founded it. And some of the quotes that they said, and I thought, how could we be the ancestors of these people? This is some of those quotes. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. That's Benjamin Franklin. Even more to the point, give me liberty or give me death. I think that speaks for itself, and Henry was talking about fighting a revolution at that point. This was a good one. Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigues of supporting it. And I would rather be exposed to the inconveniences attending to much liberty than those attending to too small a degree of it. And that's a Thomas Jefferson quote. Thomas Paine and Thomas Jefferson. I thought about what would happen if I wasn't in this chair. I thought about if we create a precedence of jumping to conclusions or governing on fear, what that would look like in the future. How quickly would others jump to take our rights away from us and our own personal autonomy and responsibility for ourselves, for our family. I also thank God that this thing doesn't affect kids. I think my fatherly instinct would come out if I felt like kids were going to be affected negatively, extremely negatively, but by this, like those that are in their elderly age are. And then I really got mad because I thought about the news again, and I thought about the idea that I just had a good friend growing up who committed suicide. He was 30 years old with 2 kids. We have one death in Ellis County. He was a 92-year-old man. My grandpa refused to take oxygen at age 92 because he was ready to go. He wanted to see grandma. So the news never reported that we added funding to High Plains Mental Health. They don't want to talk about the good things that we do as a board. I've heard nothing about our balanced budget, not increasing taxes, all these great things that could be reported because they're so desperate for us to have bad numbers of COVID-19 cases. Jason spends every day, he calls, he knows where these cells are, he spends his entire time making sure that we're safe and giving us recommendations. There's not another person in this room that does that. I'm taking his advice, and I want to save our ability to govern the right way for when there is an actual threat. And I don't know that that will actually happen in COVID-19. The other thing I'd like to do is not have to talk about it every week, because the last thing I want is a news camera here every week to try and get an aha moment and run another article that scares all the other people who don't want to wear a mask, because that seems to be what happens as well. We are a working board. Every time that we talk, it's the first time we get to hear each other's opinions about any topic, and I don't think that the news media has any understanding of that. I think they think we come in here planned out of what's going to happen, and that's not what a working board is. By Kansas Open Meetings Act requirements, the first time we get to talk about it is here, and they can selectively take any quote they want and make it look like we're going to do something that we're not going to do. And that's why it seems like every article that comes out of the news lately is County Commission discusses, mulls, considers. Well, why don't you just wait till we make a decision? We're happy to stand by our decisions. In the meantime, we are discussing, mulling, and considering, and all you're doing is trying to get clickbait from those discussions. That's it for me.
Commissioner Hazelhorst,
Thank you.
any questions? Comments?
Yeah, I'm going to read something to Jason here in a little bit, but I will say yesterday at church, and maybe, I don't know if Dustin went to St. Joe's Church or not yesterday, but Father Matthew said it the best. Quit watching the 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock news. The news media has nothing to do but report negative. He said if you'd quit watching it, every parishioner in this church today would quit watching the 6 and 10 o'clock news, turn it off, go find something else to do, read the Bible, pick up a newspaper, pick up a magazine, and read something that's positive, you would forget about what's going on. And he said it the best. He started out with a few other things I'm not going to mention and talk about, but he said it the best yesterday at church. There's probably, 400 people in church yesterday, I'm guessing. Out of the 400, about 8 people had masks on. And my thing is, and I tell everybody, I had a lady at my house stop today, she's wearing a mask, a very good friend of mine. She said, I'll take it off if it offends you. I said, it don't offend me. I don't care if everybody around me wears a mask. That is her choice. Jason has preached it over and over every week, that if you can't social distance, wear it. That man right there is the smartest man in Ellis County, I feel. Because he has preached it, he has said it every week, and I know he's probably damn tired of talking about it every day, and he's doing a hell of a job. Today, the mayor of Hayes calls me, and didn't call me, I'm sorry, he texted me, and I should probably read you his text just from what he said, but he said they're really tired of the city having to manage the health department of something they have no control over. I said, really? So I fired right back, and I bragged on that man right there, and at the end of our conversation, he said, you know what? He said, I agree. Jason's doing a hell of a job. And he is too. He gives us the best report every day. I mean, it comes out whatever time. Some days it's noon, some days it's 2, and some days it's 3 because he's swimming in it, and he can't do his regular job that he's hired to do. So I'm going to read you this, Jason, and I just want you to make a comment on this after I read it. Just tell me what you think. And I'm guessing both of you did get maybe a couple emails from a couple doctors, I'm assuming, over the past few days. And then Cindy Bauer also sent us some information. I think you guys read that. I did read your article, Jason, on why not to wear masks. I encourage everybody to read that. That's a great article. It's a little lengthy, but it's a great article. So since our governor's mask mandate, 15 counties in Kansas have become required apparel to wear a mask. 90 counties rescinded the order, choosing instead of the only recommend that masks be worn. What has happened since that time? In counties that rescinded the order, cases have increased 14%. In counties where masks are mandated, cases have increased 67.34%. Here's the data. Of the 5,983 new cases since July 1st, 4,769 have been diagnosed in 15 counties, in those counties where masks were mandated. The 15 counties where masks were not required, 1,174 in those other 90 counties. When our governor blames the rise in cases in the counties that rescinded her order, please know that she is either ignoring the stats or she is attempt to deceive you. It goes right back to the news media, as Commissioner Rhodes said. Again, the governor's ignoring the data. You have preached it over and over. Either we choose to hear what Mr. Kennedy says or we don't. And at the end of the day, he's living it. We're living it somewhat. He's living it from the time he wakes up at 6 o'clock in the morning till he goes to bed at midnight. He lives it his entire life. Who knows better in our county what's going on with the data? That man right there does. As I said earlier, I think he's the smartest man in Ellis County because he's living it, he's preaching it, and he knows what's going on. Thank you very much, Chair.
Jason, Ellis County currently doesn't have a mask mandate. How do we compare to some of the counties or cities that do?
So before we talk about that, I'm by no means the smartest person in this county. I do not have all the answers. Nobody does. And the first person that stands up at this podium and tells you they do, they're lying to you. I'm as scared as anybody else right now. We're all scared of something different. Whether you're scared of the virus, you're scared of the decisions because of the virus, you're scared of the economic impact of the virus. Every single one of us has something that we're scared of as we deal with this. I'm not against masks. Masks work in certain situations. Masks work as an individual decision to wear them. Masks work when you're caring for elderly loved ones. Masks work when you're in a high population dense, high viral load environment where you cannot socially distance. Masks work in healthcare settings, they work in long-term care facilities. What we don't know, what I don't know, is how do they work as a community mitigation measure in a community with low numbers of active cases. That is what we don't know. And my fear with that is if we need them, will the public follow it? You need 80% adoption for community mitigation measures to truly be impactful. Can we get that today? I don't know. But if the community believes in me, and they believe in us, when we ask them to, they will. So the numbers I have before me are not anti-mask, they're not pro-mask, they're just numbers. They are data points on a line that show maybe effectiveness or non-effectiveness or whatever, but they are just numbers. The impacts are how they affect people. So as we look at the numbers, Ellis County removed restrictions on May 27th. The data I have before me is case data from July 7th through July 18th. The reason I picked those dates is because July 7th was about the last date that any of these counties enacted or cities enacted a mask mandate. So I went from July 7th till the 18th. I didn't pick that data because it was the best trends for Ellis County. It was actually the worst. So it's a fair comparison, I would say, across the county or across the state. As we look at Ellis County from July 7th through the 18th, our case growth per 1,000 was 2. 2 cases per 1,000 was our case growth during that time period. That's it gave us a 9% positive rate. Like I said, we're 8%, each 7 days different, but I didn't have the data here for the 19th and the 20th. So our case growth per 1,000 was 2, our percent of positive was 9%. If we look at Saline County, one of the closest to us that has a mask mandate, their case growth per 1,000 was 2.6, meaning they were 0.6 greater cases per 1,000 over the same time frame. Their percent of positive was 13%. That's 4% greater than us. If you look at Riley County, they actually have a case growth rate less than ours, 1.5. We're 2. Their percent of positive was 9%, the same as us. Their active cases are significantly higher. They not only enacted a mask mandate, though, they put a bars closing early and a 50-person mass gathering piece as well. As we've talked, social distancing works. Avoid contact with people. In Wichita-Sedgwick County, case growth per 1,000 was 2.6. We're 2.0. They had a 14% of positive. We're 9. Jewell County and Mitchell County actually enacted mask mandates, but I'm not going to talk about their numbers because their percent of positive was 50% and 43%, which means their testing, their numbers are just outliers, and I don't even want to put them out there. One of them's good, one of them's worse, but Dickinson County, 2, same as us. Case growth per 1,000 was 2, with a 15% of positive. Shawnee County is 2.5, we're 2. Percent of positive is 7% in Shawnee County. Shawnee County has been fairly restrictive or more restrictive from the start. They not only put in a mask mandate, bars and restaurants and nightclub restriction, personnel services restrictions, and a mass gathering restriction. Wyandotte County, 6.7 case growth per 1,000. We're 2. 17% of positive. Wyandotte County has also been fairly restrictive. They stayed with the phase 3 restriction, including mass gathering, bars, nightclubs, masks, and additional restrictions on top of that. Douglas County, they have a case growth 1.5 less than us and a 6% of positive. Lawrence Douglas County has made significant gains. They really have. They enacted all of the phase 3 restrictions, including mass gatherings, bars and nightclubs, masks, additional restrictions on personnel services. They've made some gains. So those are the biggest portion of the counties that have the mask mandates. As you can see from those numbers, the data really doesn't show us whether they work or whether they don't. Masks work in high population dense, high viral load environments where you cannot socially distance. The best people to determine those environments are the proprietors of the business, the owners, the people that run the organization, the people that organize it, the people that understand it. If we want to make impacts, we limit groups of people. All of that comes when we meet our metrics to enact our pandemic plan.
Jason, the Walmart and Dillon's, Dillon's is going to start Wednesday, have to wear a mask on the store. Has there been any clusters of cases come out of Dillon's that you're aware of or heard of in Kansas?
No. Well, I can't speak to Kansas. I don't know of any specific. I know there are none in Ellis County.
Okay, and I go to Dillon's frequently. It's easy to social distance. So it's obviously not from clusters or it's not from social distancing issues. It must be political that they're doing something like this. It's the only thing I can come up with. Same with Walmart. We heard about the lady over here who has a 94-year-old father. My father's 94, fast approaching 95. He likes his independence. He's had triple bypass surgery about 20 years ago. He's getting frail. But the one thing he enjoys, and he enjoys a lot, is every Sunday he likes to go to Dillon's and shop. He does his own shopping. And so I had the wife, I said, well, Dillon's is going to impose this on us. I said, see what the exemptions are for medical, because I can't put a mask on him when you have a 18% ejection fraction. You're not going to start trying to hinder your oxygenation. And so my wife looked it all up, and she said, if you can't wear a mask, you're to wear a face shield. Well, I said, I'm not going to put a face shield on him either. Well, then they don't want you to come into the store at all. Just go ahead and use the internet. And you know, that really pissed me off. My dad, 94 years old, World War II veteran, served in the South Pacific. That old man, he fought at Iwo Jima. He was there. And now you got a store doesn't even want him to go in. And that's just pathetic. That just pisses me off to no end. And I hear all of this stuff. I hear the city commission, if we don't step up and do what's right, according to them, they're going to do it. And that's their prerogative if they want to. I don't like them necessarily taking the moral high ground, trying to tell me what's right. I've been told I didn't go, but I've been told we had a ball tournament this weekend where we expected 90 teams. That's 900 people in this community that came in from out of town. In our motels, in our restaurants, in our convenience stores. That's a very good chance to spread a virus if you have it. And it appears to me you just can't worry about a mask Monday through Friday and then do what the hell you want to do on a weekend. That doesn't work. We heard about these 4,000 college kids coming back to town. What's going to stop them from partying on a weekend? You know, it just doesn't work. I was watching the news Saturday night, and KKBSH was talking about the Shrine Bowl. And they showed how you go into the Shrine Bowl. They were taking your temperature, and you had to have a mask on. And then the camera panned the crowd. Half the people had their mask off. I told my wife, I said, what the hell is that all about? You know, you either follow through with something or you don't. Many years ago, we had the SARS issue that came up. And when we had the SARS issue, of course, we had all our meetings with KDHE and some of the community providers. We had a set of protocols to follow. It wasn't really too big of an issue. We had one SARS case in Ellis County. Some years later, we had the H1N1 situation. That was a bigger issue. We had a lot of meetings with KDHE. We had a set of protocols. had a lot of surveillance, When KDHE determined at that point in time we had community spread, they said, call it off. You can't do decent surveillance once you're doing community spread. During both of those issues, one thing that was never brought up, we talked about social distance, talked about a lot of things. They never brought up putting a mask on. And that's because a mask won't stop a damn virus. And that's just fact. I spent all weekend researching these masks. The virus particle we're talking about is about 1 micron, maybe just a scotch more than 0.1 micron. A mask is designed to stop 0.3 to 0.8. It'd be like if I put chicken wire over my windows and thought it would keep out the flies and mosquitoes. It just doesn't work. And especially if a person wants to wear it, if they feel comfort, if they feel like it's for their own personal safety, I don't have a problem with it. But your mask is not protecting me. And I'm not going to be fooled by that. I think that's one way the press has tried to divide this country, saying, I have to protect someone by wearing a mask and they're protecting me. That's just BS. That mask you're wearing won't protect me at all. It may protect you under certain circumstances, but it's not going to protect me. And you hear all of this stuff from a variety of people. I'm to the point I'm just deleting everything I get on my email regarding a face mask. Turn on the news at night and you hear conflicting reports. CDC and Dr. Fauci were both against them initially because that was the right reaction. They didn't work before, why would they work now? Then they changed their minds. Then you hear other doctors chime in on this. I was on the internet a couple of times listening to video from doctors who said they don't do any good at all. One even questioned why a surgical mask really isn't that warranted in surgery because they don't stop bacteria. And this to me, this all sounds like it's just a bunch of ducks farting underwater. All I'm hearing is just a bunch of gurgling nonsense anymore. But I will be damned if I'm going to try to infringe upon the rights of these people to take away what little liberties we have left. It's just not where I'm going. Thank you, Jason.
No problem. What I will say, social isolation works. And the place for that we are struggling with right now is 1/3 of our active cases are contacts of another positive that lives in the home with them. If you are a positive, isolate yourself completely. That doesn't mean just because they're not in the room, you don't go. That means social isolation. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom. Ride out your contagious period, whatever we determine that to be. Mm-hmm. If we cut those transmissions inside the home, that's 1/3 of our current active cases. That means that's 1/3 more cases that we can prevent if you figure an R not a 1. So social isolation, social distancing, the more distance, the better. Those work. Masks, data's either way. Not for, I'm not against. I want them if we need them. Right now is not that time. Wash your hands, be safe, be smart, and stop being scared. Listen. Educate yourself, and we'll get through this.
Jason, one last question from me. You had a number, I believe it was 12 to 14, and I wanted to know if that was 12 to 14 hospitalizations or 12 to 14% of capacity in our.
So the metrics, like I said, the metrics I'll use is 14% of positive tests, 1% active infection, and then 5% hospitalization rate.
Okay.
And that 5% hospitalization rate with a 1% active infection figures around 14 to 15 cases. So the hospital capacity is significantly greater,
okay,
but that's their reserved capacity for COVID patients. It would be around 70% of their reserved capacity. So now their surge capacity is completely different. So as we look at that, don't think that that's all the patients that they can handle. The hospital has a surge capacity. They can change things in-house. They determine their capacity. But that's our metrics here where I think we should highly look at additional mitigation measures outside of individual choices.
And we're nowhere close to that right now.
Not currently.
Okay.
Do you have any idea how many people have been tested in Ellis County? Probably not, huh?
Oh, I do.
Just roughly, if you know, I was just curious.
Yeah, we are at, well, no, that's the, just for the last 14 days. I'd have to look on the KDHE. I don't want to tell you the wrong number, but it's all posted on KDHE's website. And I've got spreadsheets showing our 7-day averages and all that kind of stuff, but off the top of my head, I don't remember.
No
the
problem.
number
I
of
was just
tests.
curious how many hundred people's been tested already.
We're in the thousands, but I don't, like I said, I don't remember off the top
In
of my
Ellis
head.
County, they've tested thousands, you think?
That-
Really?
Oh, yeah, we're. And we're actually, again, we talk about rates per, our testing rate right now is 89.77 per thousand. 78.5 per thousand. So, quick math. Around 2,200, 2,300 tests.
Really?
And I can get you an exact number, but
I was just
It's
curious.
close.
No, that's fine.
Jason, have you been able to hire more surveillance workers?
so we actually, after we got approved to get us through the interim so we can get the position out and everything, we started bringing our paramedics and personnel over from EMS. So they're coming over to fill those positions for now from EMS on their days off. And they're doing a phenomenal job. So it's actually a pretty good partnership. We're still looking at adding positions, but we needed the help now, and they were gracious enough to do it. And we had trained them earlier on, so now they're actually jumping in, and they're doing a phenomenal job.
So there's some positive news. We spent a little money to make sure our 26 contact tracers are contact tracing quickly.
Sure. Yeah. And our contact tracing, we've been about 24-hour turnaround. I do not want to see us get outside of that 24 hours now. Sometimes it'll take some time for a person to return a contact list to us or something like that. But within 24 hours, we have the contact tracing completed, and we have anybody in quarantine or isolation. We need people to maintain that quarantine and isolation. We need people to actually follow those rules and make sure that they're staying home when they're supposed to be staying home. We do have issues with that. We have people that, I wasn't really around them. That doesn't matter. You were determined to be a contact, stay home in quarantine. So, but I think all in all, Ellis County's done a phenomenal job. Our case rates per thousand are low. We're inherently socially distanced. We see the hospitalization rate declining really nationwide. We see the mortality index declining nationwide. I think there's a lot of positives now as we come into summer. We know more about the virus. We understand some of the things with the virus. We're getting more data every day. And everything still changes by tomorrow, but there are some positives as we look forward.
One concern I had, and I talked with you about this today, is when we were first told as small business owners we needed to stay home. When the governor deemed us not necessary to, or what was the word?
Non-essential.
I was non-essential. I needed to stay home. I needed to hunker down and save lives. At some point during there, we went 29 days without a single case, I believe. We asked if we could go past a stage of the Ad Astra, the reopen plan. And the whole premise was that we flatten a curve. Meanwhile, this virus was burning through New York City, thousands of miles away from me. And I just sat there and I learned what bad governance is. I learned what really makes people not trust government, because they were governing us like somehow it was magically going to be here and threatening us the way it was New York City and major metros. And frankly, it got into some nursing homes in Seattle, and all of a sudden their death rate spiked way up. Well, it got into nursing homes. It wasn't good. So is the curve sufficiently flattened?
So I think, yeah, if you look nationwide, so the epidemiological curve is the basically the threshold. You don't want to overwhelm the threshold of your medical care system. So in Ellis County, we're lucky. We have a great hospital. We have great, not just the hospital, but we have a great healthcare community. We're actually partnered with some of the other outlying clinics. First Care Clinic provides us ILI data. We have, tons of healthcare in this community, and I'm thankful for that. We have sufficient capacity at this time. We have good things going here in Ellis County. We're inherently socially distanced. What might not work, or what data works in a New York subway might not be data for Ellis County streets. So I've followed the data from the start of this. I've followed the data from day one. The reason that we requested an exemption is because we met every metric that was laid out in the plan to be there. We continued without cases for an extended duration of time. Now COVID is here. COVID is in our community. Now we need to be smart. We need to educate ourselves. We need to take the simple measures that are impactful, and we need to use those to guide our decisions every day. We will beat COVID in Ellis County eventually. We will do it because we have a great community, we have great people, we have a strong community. I've received tons of support from the community on whatever it is. I will watch the numbers. When we meet the threshold, I will make sure the community knows.
I'll add one last thing. I think we have to stop moving the goal, because if we keep moving the goal on these people, they will lose trust in us as a governing body. We've met the goal. We were at the goal the entire time in Ellis County, and frankly, our governor hurt our economy pretty badly in the process. So.
To answer your question, Butch, about your father and going to the grocery store,
Yes.
this morning the gentleman that owns the Ellis grocery store said he'd be glad to accommodate anybody from Hayes that would like to come over.
Well, we may be doing that.
I had a chuckle. He was at the coffee shop and they were talking about it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Jason.
Jason, thank you. Okay, next would be court services.
More handouts. Thank you, sir.
I'll give her Mike.
Good evening. So, that's a tough one to follow. Judge Brown wanted me to give his apology. He's not able to be here tonight. He had some prior commitments to be to. I'm here with court services, but on behalf of our Ellis County Drug Court. A year ago, we were approved for, Teresa and I and Amanda, and with the help of several other people, were able to submit that BJA, Bureau of Justice Assistance grant, which we were fortunate to be awarded $406,366 on. That is to basically completely fund all of our drug court processes that we have. All of the barriers to success that all of our drug court clients have comes out of that, with the exception of a few things that we were unable to cover on it. Our drug court is coming up on its 2-year anniversary of being, the start was August 30th of 2018, I believe. Since that time, we have come up with a need that I think is going to be very beneficial to our community corrections officers, Teresa specifically, and more importantly, all of the clients that we serve in our drug court right now. That position is for a case manager position that we would like to hire. It's going to be a part-time position. It's 28 hours a week. And we are going to use this position to, for assistance in seeking employment, driver's license, daily living skills, finding community service work, creating a budget, as well as help Teresa with all the stuff that she does. All that stuff is going to take a lot of the burden off the community corrections officers that have been doing it up to this point, and it's going to greatly improve the barriers that the drug court clients have. Now, the good news, you guys were looking for good news earlier. This comes all out of the grant. This is going to cost Ellis County absolutely nothing. It's going to be fully funded by our grant. The only thing we are going to need is some assistance by Janet, who has been extremely helpful in this process, by the way. I just wanted to point that out. I've called her several times getting assistance on what we needed to get this going. She's been extremely helpful and knowledgeable on it. And I think our treasurer's office is going to have to set up an account because we want to run the payroll through the Ellis County payroll system because we have no other way to do it. This position, like I said, is 100% grant funded, including capers, including the workman's comp insurance. Everything is covered through it. So it costs, like I said, zero comes out of that. A little bit of time is going to come out. And we need you guys' approval to do this because you guys are the host county for our grant. Our grant is all run through Ellis County, and we are asking for permission to fill this position, or asking for permission to fill this position as soon as we can, actually. So with that, if you have any questions.
Commissioner, any questions?
Just a couple of them. So $18 an hour looks like 20 hours a week. So, you know, I know it's covered through the grant, but we have a pretty robust package for our employees. It won't be included in that because they are a part-time employee, correct, Mike?
It's a 28 hours a week, actually, and that's why we fund capers. I believe, in speaking with Janet, we had to fund, she called and verified that if it was over a certain number of hours, we did have to provide capers.
Right.
But
not health care.
30 hours is the threshold for the insurance.
Yeah, okay.
And that is significantly more expensive.
Right,
on our
yeah.
end for the grant. So that's why we'd cut it, we put it at 28 hours instead of 30, just for some leeway, so that this position could actually, if they were to go over 28 hours a week occasionally, that we were able to fund that and still cover it. We've got significant funds to cover this because, you know, the position was funded from October last year when we accepted the grant, and we're just now asking for it. So
Okay.
this position, our grant is a 3-year grant, so this position will run through October of 2022, and at that point, we anticipate renewing the grant, or if other funding becomes available, there's some other opportunities maybe for money to come from different areas, but it won't be through Ellis County. It'll be through different grants. But we anticipate resubmitting the grant, adding to it if we need to, and continuing this position on through the duration of our drug court as long as we have it and we're able to continue to provide services to clients. But I think it's going to be really beneficial to all of our clients. It's going to be really beneficial to all the staff that's working really hard for those clients.
Yeah, that was my big question. What was the end game? So you kind of answered all of them. So 2022, you reapply for the grant. There's no intention of ever needing us to come in and take over any of this. Okay.
We have no intention of ever coming back to Ellis County asking for money. You guys provided seed money that got us started. That was extremely helpful. And at that time, we told you that we wouldn't be asking, and we don't intend to now.
Okay. Well, that's always our fear when we fund positions up here is what do they end up being down the road? So answered all my questions.
Commissioner Hazelhorse?
I know with, I got to attend the first graduation of drug court. How's that still going? Are we like at number 3 by now, or 4, or where are we
are
at?
still on number 2.
Still on number 2.
COVID kind of stepped on it, and
Okay.
we are scheduling and working on getting another one scheduled. We have done some talking about where we wanted to do that, whether we were going to do it in the courthouse. With COVID, we've had some other suggestions to do it, but I don't know if it'll all be as big as the first one that we had, but we would like to do something really nice for all the ones that graduate because they've earned it. Every one of those that have earned it. And I'm not sure. Do you know how many we have?
We have 5 more that are, in the next week and a half, we'll have 5 already graduated.
Good.
We've got
Thank
several
you.
more graduates that are doing outstanding. We've had some that, you know, have been working towards it that are, you know, have had some slip-ups. COVID's not, you know, been great to a lot of those. So, and they've needed a lot more support. And drug court is one of the things that has continued on through COVID. We've been, Teresa and Judge Brown and Amanda and the rest of them have been really creative in doing these by Zoom or by segmenting who was there at a time so that we were meeting the attendance barriers and not getting too many people in there and keeping them distance and apart. And like the last several that we've had, our staff has been reporting by Zoom so that we don't have that many people in the courtroom. The participants are usually coming to court and still getting that piece, because it's really important for them to see the judge and be in front of the judge. And that's been a big part of it. So we have been really fortunate to be able to continue on with that, and it's helped because, you know, the participants are pretty vulnerable at times like this.
Well, I think this is a good deal. Do I hear a motion?
I move the drug court be approved to add requested position as part of the services provided by the Bureau of Justice grant as proposed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the clerk administrative assistant position. Donna and JD?
Very good. Thank you very much. Yes, if you're in favor of this, then it was my idea. If you're not, it was Donna's idea. So I heard that a little earlier.
That
something
works.
like that. I'm kidding. No, I approached Donna. We have an administrative assistant position that is in the shared office between the clerks and the administrator's office. And that position is currently funded at a 3/4 position. And in talking to Donna with the CARES Act, which we'll talk about maybe in a little while, or we could talk about it now, but it's already requiring an exorbitant amount of time to get set up, and is going to continue to do that as we get into it. And a lot of places, a lot of counties have actually hired either a consultant or outstaffed to assist them with that, and it's all covered under the grant. However, I feel uneasy doing that. I think it'd be better to save that money and actually put it to work for the whole county than just to put it into administration. So with that being said, I approached Donna. We chatted about what if we made that position, added the other 1/4 hour to it, part-time hour, and make it a full-time position. And what would that look like? That adds about $18,000 to the budget, to the position. A couple of things that benefit out of that. One is that initially, anyway, that additional hours would qualify under the CARES Act for reimbursement, under the reimbursement provision. And then as we get beyond July 31st, then it would be under the other portion, which is the direct aid portion of the funding mechanism. There's 2 portions. And anyway, it would be eligible for funding for this year. We have looked at the budget. We'll talk about budget in just a little bit. We feel that we could be able to absorb that in next year's budget. We would share it, both the clerk and the administrator are general fund funded. So we're looking at maybe actually having on papers being a 50-50 share between the 2 departments, and as the needs and kind of ebb and flow, that the person would be able to spend either more time or less time in assistance in either of the 2 offices. The administrator currently doesn't have an administrative assistant, does have HR staff, and then Donna graciously provides someone anyway. So we kind of have that not on paper. This maybe puts it a little more on paper, I suppose, as we move forward. Donna, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think, as JD stated, that our office works together a lot anymore, the administrative and the clerk's office. We help one another out. Right now, Janet in HR is also a passport agent, and everyone in the county clerk's office is a passport agent. And the county does make $35 for each passport that is sold, and we do quite a few passports, except this year. We're starting to get back into it. So, it does help out that we can work together, answer the phone, handle the business that comes through the door. So I do like the idea very much. And I think we have a person that is very capable in that line.
And JD, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
Now, for 2021, is that going to be covered in the CARES Act?
Well, as of right now, the CARES Act ends because it's supposed to end in December 31st of the year.
Okay.
So we would have to absorb that.
Questions?
Not really any questions. I think it was well put together. The big issue from my perspective is this is a lot of money, and we can't mess up the end game on it for the county of Ellis. And you know, frankly, I'm excited. It's Sharon that we would be bumping. Yeah, I think we've got a great employee, somebody that could really jump in there and add those extra hours and help that administrative stuff. This is what, $5.7 million.
That's right.
So 9,000 of it to try and get it done right seems like we should just bite the bullet, even though I don't necessarily like the idea of the position in the future. I think we could probably look at it after next year as that all ends up and whether or not the staffing is right at that point. But you're obviously going to be taking on quite a bit, and I'd imagine bringing on any kind of outside source would cost much more than that, with much less knowing of what's going on. So I'm in favor of it. I think it's a good way, and frankly, I just don't think we can screw this up. I mean, it's so much money that we're just trying to figure out how to get it to the people that need it.
Right,
So.
right. Commissioner Hazelhorst?
Kind of just echo Dustin's comments, very much so. I mean, I know we haven't talked about adding any more, but on this situation, we're talking over $5 million to administer. I think we definitely need to be on top, and she's an already experienced employee, so I think that'll be a good addition, and helping Don out and helping JD, so.
I
yes.
think that CARES Act is just a monster. And
Yeah.
I think, and it's good your offices can all work together. This is a good idea, and I think it's great to do.
Yep.
Okay, do we hear a motion for this?
I move to increase the authorized strength of an administrative assistant position currently in the county clerk's office from 0.75 to 1.00 full-time, and to reallocate 50% of the position's time to the county administrator's office and 50% to the county clerk's office.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then we have the final 2021 budget presentation.
I have a few comments for you this evening on this. Darren is here as well. We have incorporated the items that we talked about at the last meeting. Those are in the budget. We have also, we had another copy of it in case it wasn't approved earlier, but we did make this copy that's in here that does incorporate that position that we just talked about a moment ago. So that is included. The insurance numbers, as we talked about last time, those have been included, as well as the discussion we had on the fire last week as well is included. One other piece of good news that really doesn't affect the budget as far as the authorized expenditures, but it does affect our carryover. We've learned from the audit that actually the 2019 numbers, again, we don't have it yet, we've just been told preliminarily, that the 2019 year is going to finish quite a bit ahead of where the previous projections were on it, to the tune of about $1 million. So that is really good news for our reserves. We can carry that over in our reserves and have that funds available as we move forward into the future. So otherwise, the budget is balanced as we talked about before.
Okay, sounds real good to me.
Yep.
Commissioners, comments, questions?
Great job to my fellow commissioners, department heads, elected officials. Darren, you did a
And Darren.
wonderful job putting that, Darren, you did a wonderful job putting it together and bringing JD up to speed, so thank you, all of the above. We was able to restore funding to High Plains Mental Health and do a lot of things that was necessary in the community, and especially everything that's going on right now, so again, thanks to my fellow commissioners and all of our department heads and elected officials.
JD, and this might take Darren, with how we budgeted, would that become a revenue neutral budget from 2019?
Darren, do you want to?
Sorry, what was the question?
You look less stressed than the last time I saw you.
It's nicer.
I was just asking with the potential, $1 million or so that we were ahead of what we budgeted last year. Did we end up becoming revenue neutral on that 2019 expenditures and revenue?
So Darren Myers, Director of Fire and Emergency Management. It kind of depends on how you look at that. If, as the commission knows, the sales tax passed, so the revenues that come in from the sales tax help offset the ad valorem tax that we could receive from the assessing the taxes for the property tax. I'm sorry.
Right.
So when you offset that and you keep the mill levy the same, expenditures or stays the same, but we have an additional revenue source, and that's where that approximately $1 million comes into play. So when we look at revenue neutral and we keep the mill levy the same, basically the revenue will stay the same unless we increase the ad valorem or the mill levy to increase the ad valorem property tax, which, as the commission requested, we kept that the same. The additional revenue that will be brought in to offset what is being brought in from property tax we'll just go into a rollover account and help build our unencumbered cash.
And that's of the 2020 budget, correct? You're
2021.
expecting the $300,000 from the 2020 budget to help offset any issues too?
It'll probably be closer to around 200,000 because we're only going to have 1 month, not two, collected as originally thought, because we'll start collecting it in October. The state will do their magic in November, and we'll receive it in December.
Okay.
But that will help offset. We're currently almost 99% of all our revenue that is budgeted has been collected. The biggest portion of what is remaining out of our revenue that has not been collected is our pilot tax for the wind farm, but we don't usually collect that until later in the fall. So that'll be able to pick up, as well as any other miscellaneous revenue.
And that's in around 800,000?
I think, yeah, it's about 860,000, I believe.
Okay, those were the questions I had. I just wondered with that good news from the audit, how that matched up for last year, so.
And just to build off what JD said a little bit ago, because he had requested about what our unencumbered cash was over the last couple of years. And if we look back about 5 years, we've depleted our rollover by about 40 or 60%, from about 6.3 million down to 2.5 million, and I think is what's projected at the start of this year. So being able to offset those, not increase expenditures as we had planned, we kept that general fund expenditures about the same. We're going to be able to take that and start building up reserves, so that way our how healthy we are as economically for Ellis County will be able to increase, and we'll have those reserves built back up again.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Good. Yeah, and I believe that'll be the big question for future commissions, is, where do we need to be at in unencumbered cash?
Mm-hmm.
How much should we be taxing the public in order to do the things that they expect from us? And then the looming 10 years from now, what position are we in at that point, and where will we be? And so I think it will take planning from both sides, from the county side on what the public can expect when that goes away, as well as from their side, deciding whether or not they like the level of services that they're getting in Ellis County right now. And I believe that's what they decided in the last sales tax, as well as that they wanted money spent on our road infrastructure, which we will do. We have to do. Mm-hmm. It's been hard to explain that to people, but we will fix roads. We are making sure that that is the direction of that money.
Correct.
To help build up
just-
your question there, go ahead.
All I was going to say was just on the reserves, it's good practice. I'd love to see us at 20% reserves of our spending. But I mean, you certainly set the policy, but that would be my recommendation, that we try to shoot for that.
Mm-hmm.
And JD, you might elaborate on it. I think we've discussed it before. The purpose of those reserves is disasters and things of that nature that we might have to overcome
Right.
without the help of the federal government or state government, and be able to manage that amount of money in the interim while we wait on help.
That's right. I know you all recall that I was in Neodesha a few years back, and I was a city administrator there then, and we had just a horrible flood, and it affected multiple communities in southeast Kansas, and some of the cities were having to issue no-fund warrants because they didn't have sufficient funds on hand we did, fortunately, in the Odyssey, and we got through it until we were refunded. As everybody knows, FEMA takes plenty of time to refund for expenditures incurred after a disaster. But anyway, things like that, it's definitely nice to, and good practice to have, like I said, 20% seems a very responsible number. It's not, you don't tax just to put money in the bank.
Right.
You tax to deliver services, but then also to be able to set some aside in case you need it as well.
Sounds good. Proceed.
Thank you.
Okay, next will be the county administrator report.
Okay. Thank you all. I was going to make this relatively short, but I think I'm maybe in the interest of what we have going on now, maybe I should share just a wee bit more than what I was planning. Ellis Cares is the acronym that we're currently using for the CARES Act. So we set up an email address so people can email to us with questions or that type of thing. We did have our first think tank meeting via Zoom today. It went very well. We had 100% participation from the 15 or so people that are touching various parts of the community. The group made recommendations on a couple additional people to add to it to make sure that we are touching all parts of the county, which is, I think, going to probably be one of the highest priority goals. But some of the things that the committee took on were what they might recommend for impact priorities, things like basic needs, social needs, aging needs, educational needs of the county community, and also healthy minds as well. And so they're going to be, we've got initial draft, and we're going to be coming back at the next meeting, and people are going to be offering their thoughts, and we're going to develop a direction on that. Also, principles for the issuance of funding that would help you. And again, these recommendations will be brought to you for your consideration and approval. We have to have an approved plan into the state by August 15th. That's our one big deadline. And so this group must meet very quickly and rapidly to develop this major and hopefully very impactful program for the whole county community, all the while keeping in mind that there's other sources of revenue coming into certain entities like schools and hospital, and the folks that are on the committee, some we had several from schools, and also the hospital is represented, and I was very pleased to hear them also indicating that they realize there's these other buckets of funding, and they want to make the best use of those other buckets so that as much funding that comes to the county can be distributed into the county, and of course we can't double dip too. So everyone's very cognizant of that, and keeping that in mind as we build a recommendation for a program. But considering community impact, being action-oriented, accountability, leadership, and it being an equitable plan. So that's the first draft of principles. Again, the group's going to work on that, and goals being how to distribute the information, how to ensure that we're compliant, and also prioritizing the distributions. Again, to put together a plan to recommend to you all for your consideration. As we said earlier, with $5.7 million, to my knowledge, the monies have not yet been transferred to us. We thought it was going to be last week, and then we received notification it was going to be today, but I don't know that those funds, have you heard, Donna? Yeah. I don't believe those funds are here yet, but I understand they are coming. We did have a very good group of folks that participated, where everyone is all in and understands the monumental task that is ahead of our county, and they're completely committed. We're going to meet yet again this week on Thursday afternoon. We're going to have a follow-up to all these things that I was mentioning to you, as well as a number of other things. I'm going to stop there. If you all have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. But this is going to be a continuing dialogue as we go on.
Okay, sounds good.
Very good. I have just a few other quick things for you.
JD, can I
yes, sir.
interrupt and just
Of
ask you a
course.
little bit about the CARES Act?
Sure.
One thing I think that would be good, just for clarity for the public, is the names of the people that are going to be on that CARES Act group.
Okay.
And their organizations. I have heard through counties throughout western Kansas, there's been issues there are a lot smaller counties than us, smaller amounts of money, and obviously not as much in terms of robustness of their economy. So but ours is relatively large compared to most of them, and I think that's a good thing. I think it's important that people understand that we're reaching out to these major employers. And then the only other concern that I have, and it's just because it's in my wheelhouse, is the economic development aspect of it. I think that should be important because I think that is important to how we survive as an economy, and I think that was part of the work of it. I'd imagine that Doug Williams with Grow Hayes is one of the members of the board, so that's fine. That's the important thing. But just the robustness of the ideas that come out of that amount of money and what we can do to spark this economy back up. I have real fears of what fourth quarter could look like. I have never seen a government throw so much money into the economy at one time. And if we don't have a robust economy coming out of it with interest rates as low as they are, we're in a real pickle financially. And so economic matters matter about as much to me as health matters in this. And although I know we do need to help Hayes Med, the school systems, Fort Hays State in whatever way we can. And just as a public statement, Jason cannot do everything. Jason can give you best practices, but these organizations need to go out and do the right thing on their own, and they need to let us know with this money how we can help them do that, so we can battle this disease. So,
Okay, proceed.
Very good. Maybe real quickly. So that was, even though I didn't mention it a little bit earlier, that was one of our topics today was economic development and economic impact, and we actually had I think 4 different people. I'm looking at Walt. Walt was part of our group. Did you wish to know who I could share who's on the committee?
I
if
think
you'd
just
like?
make it public. I don't think you
Okay.
need to read them tonight. But,
Okay.
and if you add those extras that they had said should probably be there, I think that transparency will be good for people,
Sure.
and they'll know. Obviously, at some point, you got to cut it off, and you guys got to get this thing published.
Right.
But I think that I'm excited that you have started what I think is probably one of the better ones as far as setting up a good group of people from all different backgrounds and all different parts of our economy to make sure the money's going in the right places to fight this war and also get us where we can come out on the back end of this. Thanks be to God, maybe better than we started.
Very
I
good.
just don't know that that's a thing. We will have to pay this back, and frankly, it's going to be my generation. And we took on a lot of debt from the federal government to do this, so we're the end game right here in Ellis County. And if you guys do a good job of this, I think that we could come out stronger than ever.
Very good.
So.
Thank you. I was just a couple other quick things I was going to let you know. I have been spending probably the bulk of my time on CARES this last week. However, I did get the opportunity to meet Dr. Mason at Fort Hays State and had a very nice tour with her and appreciated that. Upcoming this week, I getting to go to the courts. They have a little different rules there, as you know, but it looks like that opportunity has been set up, and I appreciate it very much. I'm also going to, after our meeting tonight, I'm headed over to Ellis, and I'm going to meet with their city council and say hello and introduce myself. And then I have this similar meeting with the city of Hays on Thursday. Victoria is a little more of a challenge. They meet at 5:30 on Mondays, so we'll have to see if we can figure something out in the future on that. That's all I have. Thank
Okay.
you.
Commissioner Hazelhorst, report.
As many of you probably know by now, I know Donna does, the KAC convention has been officially canceled. Unfortunately, Western Kansas didn't have much of a vote in that, so. But, nope, it has been canceled, and going to cost the organization a lot of money for canceling that. I mean, they still got to pay for all the meals and meeting rooms, and it's going to be very expensive to cancel. So that is canceled, but that's really the only big news of the week.
Okay. Commissioner Roth?
Just a couple things. Obviously, I feel like COVID-19 discussion, mass discussions have taken up most of my weeks and most of the things I've done. But I've also been out doing some campaigning and throwing some stuff out. But the beauty of it is I've gotten to talk to a few people. Although I don't really knock on the door, I don't really want to put anybody at risk by being around them. You end up running into people and having discussions, and I really appreciate the discussions being as constructive as they've been, even on things that they may not agree with me about. And so I think that shows that there really is a group of people that understand what's important. I think we can teach them that wearing masks when they can't social distance is good practice, and that we can hopefully move on from this at some point when a vaccine comes. That being said, one quick note just from me personally. I run and own a business that has an open sign. And sometimes that open sign gets the wrong reaction from people. I don't mind if people come in and talk county business with me, but they have to understand that I'm there trying to make a living for me and my family. And so if I happen to be busy, I still want to talk to you. But I'd really appreciate if you saw that I was busy and just wave and come back when I'm not. Even if there's nobody in the store, sometimes I'm busy. During those lulls is where we can get a lot of things done. And I always tell people I'm probably the most transparent person that ever existed. I wish I could hide sometimes on a tractor or fishing, but that's not the case. I'm there a lot and with an open sign.
What are you doing tomorrow morning?
What you need me to drive a tractor?
So you want to hide out or what? we could probably arrange something if you want to.
It's been a few years since I've drove a tractor, but I imagine it's like a bicycle. I could get back out on there. If you ever really need the help, I will do that. Check the clothing that I got now for farming, but. No, that's just a quick note from me. I am really trying to run a business and trying to catch up from what happened, and luckily for me, and I think for a lot of people, we really had a surprising surge in things that we're doing, and hopefully doing well for all the retailers, fellow retailers. But it's just a note from me that if I happen to look busy, I probably am, and even a quick email or a call with a voicemail, I will do my best to get back to you as long as I feel like the conversation will be constructive and we can hash things out together. So that's it from me.
Okay. And I have no report. And the meeting will adjourn at 6:34.